Ladies and gentlemen, every single one of you in this room has a fire inside, but most people allow that fire to be drowned by a single thing: uncontrolled emotions. Not the emotions themselves. Those are part of being human, but the failure to control them. And let me tell you something very clearly. If you cannot control what happens inside your own head, then the world will control it for you. And the world, it doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your potential. It will chew you up and spit you out while you sit there crying about how unfair life is. I stand here not just as someone who has studied the brain for years, but as someone who has watched human beings destroy opportunities, relationships, careers, and entire lives simply because they let their emotions function like drunken drivers behind the wheel of their destiny. Anger, fear, insecurity, jealousy, self-doubt. These are natural mechanisms. They evolved to protect us. But when you hand them the keys, they crash you into walls that only exist inside your mind. Let's start with the science of this. Inside your brain sits a structure called the amygdala, your emotional alarm system. When it detects threat, real or imagined, it hijacks your entire neurochemistry. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your perception narrows. Your brain becomes a tunnel, only danger ahead. That's useful if you're facing a lion in the wild. But most of you are reacting like that to an email, a comment, a disappointment, a failure that hasn't even happened yet. Your amygdala fires like you're dying, when all you needed to do was send the email back or show up prepared. Now contrast that with the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, focus, and decision-making. It's the CEO of your mind. But when your emotions are uncontrolled, the CEO gets locked out of its own office. You are left with chaos running the company of your life. The people who win in life, in business, in health, in relationships, are not the ones who feel less. They are the ones who handle more without crumbling. They remain functional under emotional pressure. They use fear as fuel. They turn frustration into strategy. They convert heartbreak into discipline. They don't whine, and they certainly don't wait for motivation. They act. They execute. They move forward despite what they feel. Because here's a truth many avoid: you cannot control what happens to you. But you must master how you respond. Think about it. How many times have you hesitated because you were scared of rejection? How many nights have you lost sleep because you replayed something embarrassing that nobody else even remembers? How many goals have you buried because you thought people might judge you? Your life isn't being limited by reality. It's being limited by the story your emotions are forcing you to believe. I once worked with a young man, brilliant mind, huge potential, who had the opportunity of a lifetime, a major investor willing to support his startup. But the night before the meeting, fear poisoned his mind. He imagined everything going wrong, and those emotions grew louder than reason. He canceled the meeting. He told himself he needed more preparation. That investor went on to fund another entrepreneur who is now recognized globally. Meanwhile, this young man sits at a job he hates, convincing himself the timing just wasn't right. No, the timing was perfect. His emotional weakness ruined it. A single irrational feeling can cost you everything. And still, people defend their emotions like sacred excuses. I was angry. I was tired. I was in a mood. So what? Greatness doesn't care about your mood. Success doesn't pause while you calm down. Life does not give participation trophies for emotional comfort. Let me give you a contrasting example. Someone who chose mastery. A woman I once trained came from nothing. She was raised in a hostile environment, surrounded by negativity. One day she decided, not hoped, not wished, but decided to control what she could herself. She began waking up early, exercising daily, taking courses, cutting toxic people out of her life. And most importantly, she learned to pause. When anger tried to explode, when fear tried to paralyze, when sadness tried to drown her, she paused. She let the prefrontal cortex, the rational mind, take the wheel before action. Today, she leads an international organization and empowers thousands. She didn't erase emotion. She mastered it. The difference between people who stay trapped and people who rise is this: the trapped allow emotions to dictate their outcomes. The successful command those emotions to serve their mission. But why is controlling emotions so hard? Because your brain loves the familiar. The patterns you repeat become the identity you defend. If you have always reacted with panic, your brain wires panic as the default. If you've always escaped discomfort, your brain marks escape as safety. You're not broken, you're conditioned. Neuroscience has a term for this: neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do repeatedly. Every time you give in to fear instead of stepping forward, you strengthen the circuit of fear. Every time you explode in anger instead of taking a breath, you reinforce emotional recklessness. Every time you make excuses instead of taking responsibility, you carve deeper grooves of weakness. But here's the beauty: you can reverse it. You can reshape your brain. You can build mental toughness. You can train your emotions like a muscle. But make no mistake, the training is uncomfortable. Growth always demands sacrifice. Pain is the entrance fee of transformation. Some of you are waiting to feel ready. Let me tell you the scientific truth: readiness is a lie. Action creates clarity. Movement reduces fear. Discipline produces confidence. Emotions follow behavior, not the other way around. When you act differently, your brain wires differently. You want calm. Practice calm during chaos. You want courage. Step toward what scares you. You want confidence. Do difficult things and survive them. You think high performers don't feel doubt. They do, every day. They've just trained themselves to do it anyway. Let's talk about emotional triggers. Those moments when someone says the wrong thing, looks at you the wrong way, criticizes you, disagrees with you, and you explode, withdraw, or break down. That's your past programming hijacking your present success. Every emotional trigger is a teacher. It highlights where you're still controlled by pain you haven't dealt with. Instead of reacting, study it. Ask, what belief is this exposing? What insecurity is speaking right now? Emotional control begins with emotional awareness. And understand this: mastery doesn't mean suppressing feelings like a robot. Suppression creates pressure. Pretending you're fine is not strength, it's denial. Real strength is feeling everything, but acting with intention. Let me speak bluntly: your emotions are not an excuse. Your trauma is not a permission slip to stay weak. What happened to you may not be your fault, but healing, growth, and control are your responsibility. Every time you say, "I couldn't help it," you are declaring yourself powerless. You are surrendering the throne of your own mind. And once you give up control, someone else will take it. Society, social media, fear-based marketing, people who want to manipulate you, even your own worst habits. You know the most dangerous enemy? The voice in your head telling you to stay comfortable. That voice is killing your potential one excuse at a time. The greatest discoveries in science, the greatest businesses ever built, the strongest relationships, none of them were created by people who were emotionally fragile. They were created by individuals who learned to perform under stress. Pressure is not the problem. Your inability to function under pressure is the problem. Think about athletes. The difference between gold and silver isn't skill. It's emotional control when everything is on the line. Champions breathe when others choke. They execute when others collapse. They trust their training when others surrender to panic. This applies to your life too. When money gets tight, do you break? When someone betrays you, do you lose direction? When failure hits, do you quit and call it fate? Those moments define you because emotions test your character. Pain pushes you toward your destiny or your destruction, depending on who holds the steering wheel. I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. The separation between ordinary and extraordinary is emotional discipline. You want a better life. Then become a better controller of that internal chaos. Learn to delay gratification. Learn to breathe before reacting. Learn to think before speaking. Learn to choose action over fear. You have dreams. But do you have the emotional strength to pursue them relentlessly? You say you want success, but do you have the emotional maturity to handle the failures on the way? Because everyone loves the idea of winning until losing punches them in the mouth. And it will. Life will hit you hard. That's guaranteed. The only question is, will your emotions make you fall apart, or will they make you fight harder? There is a powerful part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, the bridge between emotion and decision. When trained properly, it makes you a warrior. It allows you to acknowledge the fear and still walk into the arena. It allows you to feel the pain and still keep swinging. It allows you to cry at night and still show up the next morning like a champion. Your emotions are energy, and energy must be directed. If you direct it at excuses, self-pity, and overthinking, it consumes you. If you direct it toward action, discipline, and resilience, it builds you. I've watched people with average intelligence and zero advantages outperform geniuses because they had one thing the geniuses lacked: the ability to keep going when their heart was screaming, "Stop." Let me share a truth that might sting. Successful people are not emotionally lucky. They are emotionally trained. They've spent years in uncomfortable environments. They've faced criticism. They've accepted responsibility. They've been laughed at and underestimated. They've been scared. They've been rejected. But they never let any of those emotions become chains. They treat emotions like data, not dictators. Fear says, "This might hurt." Discipline responds, "Good. That means it will change me." Anger says, "They don't respect you." Focus responds, "Earn respect through results, not tantrums." Sadness says, "Give up." Purpose responds, "Not today." A calm mind in a chaotic world is a superpower. And don't pretend you don't know what needs to be done. You know exactly what action would make your life better. And you've known it for years. The only reason you haven't done it is because your emotions convinced you to choose comfort instead of courage. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your emotional discipline. Some of you think your problem is lack of opportunity, lack of support, lack of time, lack of money. No. The primary problem is lack of emotional control. Opportunities appear, but your fear rejects them. People offer help, but your ego refuses it. Time is available, but your laziness wastes it. Money is possible, but your insecurity keeps you from pursuing it. If you want me to be soft on you, you came to the wrong place. I'm here to remind you that you are built to handle far more than you currently are. Your brain is capable of operating under immense stress. Your nervous system can adapt to pressure. Your psychology can strengthen through adversity, but only if you stop running from every uncomfortable feeling. You must build a mind that remains yours, even in your darkest moments. That means confrontation with your inner weaknesses. That means taking responsibility when you mess up. That means disciplining yourself when no one is watching. That means choosing growth instead of validation. Let me ask you something. How many goals have you let die because you were afraid of failing publicly? How many times did you stay silent because you didn't want conflict? How many times did you choose laziness over progress because your emotions wanted a break? Those moments accumulate. They stack up into a life you don't want. And then people look around confused, wondering why they're unhappy. I'll tell you why. Because life punishes emotional weakness. But life also rewards emotional mastery. That's where I will continue next. How to actually control your emotions in real time. How to rewire your brain for resilience. How to build a mind that performs under pressure. And how to transform emotional chaos into unstoppable action. Emotional control does not begin in the moment of crisis. You don't become a warrior when the battle starts. You prepare long before the enemy arrives. You must train the brain during peace so it does not collapse during war. So let's break down how emotional mastery is built, not by hiding feelings or pretending they don't exist, but by rewiring your responses so that what once triggered chaos now triggers clarity. The first tool is awareness, the ability to observe your emotional state without becoming it. Most people don't feel emotions. Emotions use them. They wake up and let the world determine whether they will rise or fall. They receive a rude message, and suddenly the entire day is ruined. Someone disagrees with them, and their confidence evaporates. This is not living. This is being puppeteered by every external force. Awareness is cutting those strings. When anger rises, you say, I am experiencing anger, not I am angry. One word changes your identity. The moment you separate yourself from the emotion, you gain leverage over it. Modern neuroscience reveals that naming a feeling reduces its intensity. It shifts activity from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, pulling power away from emotional chaos and handing it back to reasoning. That simple act of recognizing your inner weather conditions can prevent a storm from turning into a disaster. Next is control of physiology. Your body is the first battlefield. When you lose emotional control, your breath shortens, your posture collapses, your muscles tense. Your biology is preparing for conflict. If you control the body, you can control the mind. Deep, slow breathing signals to the brain that you are safe, triggering relaxation pathways and restoring conscious control. That's why the most elite operators, military, athletes, first responders, master breathing. You want emotional discipline. Learn to slow your breath when the world speeds up. Third is focus. Where attention goes, emotion flows. If you stare at what you fear, fear grows. If you obsess over what hurts you, pain multiplies. When your mind spirals, don't allow it to feed the fire. Redirect it towards solutions. The question is never, why is this happening to me? The only question that matters is, what am I going to do about it? That shift from victim thinking to problem solving rewires emotion into action. Fourth is interpretation, the story you attach to the event. Two people fail the same exam. One says, I'm stupid. This proves I can't succeed. They drown in shame. The other says, good. Now I know what to improve. They rise stronger. The same event, different story, completely different emotional outcome. Your brain reacts to the narrative you choose, not the reality itself. Change your story. Change your emotional destiny. Now let's go deeper into trauma and emotional baggage. Many of you carry pain from childhood, betrayal, abuse, failure, memories that still dictate your reactions. Someone raises their tone, and suddenly you're a terrified child again. Someone criticizes you, and those old voices whisper, you're not enough. You're not responding to the present. You're defending yourself from the past. Listen carefully. You are no longer that child. You survived. You grew. You endured storms that would have crushed others. You earned the right to take control now. You must stop letting ghosts of the past pilot the future of your life. Emotional healing isn't about erasing trauma. It's about reclaiming control despite it. And yes, healing hurts. Growth hurts. But staying emotionally handicapped hurts far worse. Anxiety is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of mismanaged energy. Depression isn't laziness. It's fatigue of the soul from battling unexpressed emotions. These states are battles. And battles require warriors, not victims. Seek help if you need it. There is strength in healing, not shame. Let's address emotional triggers again. Those explosive reactions you regret. You must learn to pause. The pause is where mastery is born. Between the feeling and the reaction, there is a gap. That gap is your power. Expand it. Insert breath. Insert thought. Insert choice. 5 seconds of awareness can save you from 5 years of regret. You must also eliminate the myth that controlling emotions means avoiding them. No. Suppressing emotion is like locking a wild animal in a tiny cage. Eventually, it tears through everything. Suppression delays the explosion. It does not prevent it. Control means acknowledging, channeling, and commanding that energy. Anger, directed, becomes power. Fear, harnessed, becomes courage. Sadness, processed, becomes wisdom. Frustration, utilized, becomes strategy. Every emotion is fuel. You decide whether it burns down your life or powers your momentum. Let's talk about fear, the king of emotional sabotage. Fear is designed to protect you from danger. But in the modern world, most of your fears are illusions. You're not being chased by predators. You're being hunted by insecurities. Fear of being judged, fear of rejection, fear of failure. These fear-based illusions are the bars of the psychological prison most people never escape. The tragedy, the door is unlocked. You just won't push it. Fear is loudest when your potential is closest. The moment you reach the edge of your current identity, fear screams, stay where you are. That's its job survival. But growth requires you to disobey fear. You can feel afraid and still move forward. That is courage, not comfort, courage. Then we have anger, a misunderstood emotion. Anger itself isn't the issue. Anger is a signal that something matters to you, deeply. It is raw energy. You can punch a wall, or you can build one. You can destroy, or you can create change. When people say, control your anger, what they mean is control your destructiveness. True mastery is transforming anger into power, into something that moves your life forward rather than backward. Now let's address sadness and emotional pain. Sadness is not weakness. It's evidence that something touched your heart. But if you let it consume you, it becomes an anchor dragging your future into the ground. Feel it, but don't drown in it. Cry if you need to. Then stand up and take action. Tears are not the end. They are a cleansing. Let's move into a concept called emotional set point. The default emotional state your brain returns to when things are neutral. Some people have a set point of optimism, resilience, and action. Others default to anxiety, negativity, and avoidance. The difference is shaped by habits, mental habits. Every day, your choices nudge your set point higher or lower. Gratitude, discipline, physical movement, meaningful work. These elevate the set point. Unchecked negativity, scrolling through toxic content, surrounding yourself with drama. These drag it down. If you want emotional strength, protect your mind from emotional pollution. That means cutting out people who drain your energy. That means controlling the content you consume. That means distancing yourself from environments where mediocrity is normalized. Emotional control isn't only internal, it's environmental hygiene. Here is something most people never learn. Emotional mastery doesn't mean life stops being hard. It means life stops breaking you. When pressure hits, you bend, but you do not shatter. When rejection comes, you adjust, but you do not quit. When plans fail, you adapt, but you do not collapse. Champions are not unshakable. They are unbreakable. They feel everything, but they respond with strength. To rewire your emotional control system, you must expose yourself to stress intentionally, controlled adversity, step into discomfort daily. Practice discipline when it's inconvenient. Seek challenges that make you stronger. The more stress your nervous system learns to navigate, the more resilient you become. This is called stress inoculation, like a mental vaccine that makes future hardships less threatening. Understand this deeply. You cannot build emotional strength in a life designed for comfort. Comfort breeds fragility. Discomfort breeds power. And let me speak plainly. Some of you are lying to yourselves. You say you want success, but you are emotionally fragile. One setback and you vanish. One harsh comment and you crumble. One difficult day and you take a week off to recover. You cannot conquer the world if you cannot conquer a bad mood. You must outgrow emotional excuses. Stop giving temporary feelings permanent authority. Everything you want, success, love, health, freedom, demands a version of you that is not controlled by emotion, but fueled by purpose. A version of you that is disciplined when tired, determined when scared, focused when distracted, and committed when discouraged. Let me tell you the truth about discipline. It is not a mood. Discipline is a decision repeated until it becomes identity. Emotional control is not a one-time effort. It is a lifestyle. You must build a standard. I do not negotiate with my feelings when it comes to my goals. You must become the kind of person whose emotions are real, but whose mission is stronger. And if you're thinking, but it's hard, yes, it's supposed to be. That's how you know it's worth it. If emotional control were easy, everyone would live the life they dream of. But look around, most people are drowning in emotional chaos. They drown in worry. They drown in drama. They drown in doubt. They drown in fear. They drown in excuses. Don't be like most people. Let's look at emotional role models, not celebrities, not influencers, but warriors of the mind. The firefighter who runs into flames while fear screams to run away. The surgeon whose hands must remain steady while a life hangs in the balance. The single parent who wakes up exhausted every day but still shows up for their children without fail. That is emotional courage. That is strength. That is mastery. Those people get no applause, but they deserve medals for what they battle internally. And listen closely, emotional mastery is not selfish. It makes you a better partner, a better parent, a better friend, a better leader. When you control your emotions, you stop hurting others with your outbursts. You stop projecting your insecurities. You stop demanding others manage your happiness. You become responsible for the energy you bring. You become a force of stability in a world of instability. That is power. Not dominance, responsibility. Let's explore the brain chemistry involved. Dopamine rewards you for progress, not comfort. Every time you push through an emotional barrier and act anyway, dopamine reinforces that strength. Confidence is built through action, not affirmation. Serotonin increases when you earn respect, including self-respect. Oxytocin rises from meaningful connection, which emotional maturity creates. Emotional control literally reshapes your brain chemicals to work in your favor. But emotional chaos does the opposite. Constant stress floods your system with cortisol, hijacking reasoning and damaging your health. Anxiety shrinks your courage. Anger damages your relationships. Jealousy poisons your peace. Self-pity paralyzes your progress. Your emotions can destroy your life or drive it forward. The decision is yours. I want to go deeper into a concept that will change your life: self-command. This is the ability to give yourself an order and execute it regardless of how you feel. Wake up at 5, done. Go to the gym, done. Make the call, confront the problem, done. No debates, no delays, no emotional detours. When your mind knows you will obey yourself, you become unstoppable. Most people lose that internal respect. They make promises to themselves that they break. They say, tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next year. They say, I will change. But their emotions rule them, so nothing changes. They don't trust themselves because they don't follow through. Self-command rebuilds trust in yourself, and once you trust yourself, confidence becomes inevitable. Let me introduce another crucial skill: emotional detachment from outcomes. This doesn't mean not caring. It means caring more about the effort than the approval. You must act without begging for validation. You must pursue progress without fearing rejection. When your emotional state depends on external approval, you hand your power away to anyone who disagrees with you. Detach from opinions. Detach from praise. Detach from criticism. Seek excellence, not applause. Now, as we move deeper, ask yourself, who would you be if emotions no longer controlled you? Imagine waking up with clear direction. Imagine fear coming, and you walk anyway. Imagine someone trying to pull you into drama, and you do not engage. Imagine failure striking, and you rise without hesitation. That version of you exists. It's not fiction. It's buried beneath years of emotional conditioning. Your job is to unleash that version through commitment, repetition, and courage. We're not done. Not even close. Next, I will take you into the highest level of emotional mastery: unbreakable control under fire. How to remain calm when everything falls apart, how to think strategically in chaos, and how to turn emotional storms into your greatest breakthroughs. At the highest level of mastery, emotional control is not just a skill, it's an identity. You become a person who performs under pressure, who thrives in chaos, who walks forward when everyone else hesitates. When the world is shaking, you stand tall, and people look to you. Because leadership is not about titles, it's about stability. It's about who remains composed when everything is collapsing. Let's talk about crisis moments, those life-changing situations where emotions surge like a tidal wave. A business on the edge of bankruptcy, a partner threatening to walk away, a doctor delivering devastating news. These experiences rip open the emotional core of a human being. And yet, this is precisely where greatness is forged. Not on sunny days, not in moments of comfort, but in the heart of chaos. I once met a man who lost everything in a single day. His company collapsed, his savings vanished, his marriage fell apart. Most people would break permanently. He spent 3 days in darkness, but on the 4th day, something remarkable happened. He got up, he shaved, he dressed in his best suit, and he walked out the door with a mindset of, it's not over until I win. Those 3 days didn't define him. His response on day 4 did. He rebuilt faster than anyone expected because he didn't allow emotions to bury him alive. You see, resilience isn't how hard you can hit, it's how quickly you can reset. Emotional mastery is the speed of recovery. Some people get knocked down for a year by one failure. Champions reset in hours. They don't replay the pain. They replay the mission. Your emotional control determines the velocity of your comeback. Let me connect this to neuroscience. Your brain encodes threat faster than safety. Negative memories stick deeper than positive ones. That's why criticism hurts more than compliments uplift. It's survival engineering. But survival mode is not success mode. You must override evolution. You must consciously choose responses that serve your future, not your fears. When crisis hits, the first question should never be, why me? The first question must be, what does this make possible? Because pain, properly used, becomes power. But let's be real. Most people don't channel pain. They collapse under it. Why? Because they believe an emotional storm means the world is ending. It doesn't. Storms test your foundation. If emotions knock you out, the foundation was weak. And weakness can be fixed if you face it instead of hiding from it. There's a method elite performers use under intense pressure, something I teach leaders, surgeons, athletes, and CEOs, called rational override. It means forcing your prefrontal cortex back into control, even when emotions are screaming. It's the ability to ask yourself in the heat of chaos, what is my objective right now? What action gets me closer? What emotion is irrelevant to this mission? Those 3 questions can save careers, relationships, companies' lives, because emotions don't have your future in mind. Your purpose does. And purpose must be the driver. Now let's address relationships, one of the biggest emotional battlegrounds. Love brings massive joy and massive vulnerability. When you love someone, they gain access to triggers no one else can reach. And if you have not mastered your emotions, intimacy becomes a war zone. You attack, you withdraw, you panic, you cling, you shut down. Emotional immaturity destroys more relationships than betrayal ever will. True love requires emotional strength. The strength to communicate instead of explode, the strength to listen instead of defend, the strength to stay calm instead of escalating conflict. A relationship thrives when both people take responsibility for their inner world instead of dumping emotional chaos onto each other. Emotional control is not coldness. It's compassion backed by strength. The strongest people love the deepest because they don't fear losing themselves in emotions. They know how to feel without drowning. Let's go deeper into identity because emotional patterns are rooted in who you believe you are. If you identify as someone who is tempered, anxious, or insecure, your brain will fight to keep you consistent with that identity. You must adopt a new identity. I am someone who controls myself under every circumstance. Not sometimes. Not when convenient. Always. Identity creates behavior. Behavior creates results. Results reinforce identity. This cycle can imprison you or liberate you. Decide which story you will live in. Now let's talk about expectation management. Many emotional breakdowns come from unrealistic expectations. People expect success without sacrifice. They expect support without criticism. They expect appreciation without effort. And when reality doesn't match their fantasy, they break. Emotional maturity means aligning expectations with reality, not entitlement. If you want to control emotions, stop expecting life to cater to them. Life doesn't owe you comfort. You owe life contribution. Let's focus now on how you handle judgment, because fear of judgment controls more lives than poverty. Every day, people dim their light to avoid offending the insecure. They silence their dreams to avoid ridicule. They choose mediocrity because excellence draws critics. Emotional mastery means accepting that you will be misunderstood, disliked, doubted, threatened, and still pursue what you believe in. If you want to rise above average, prepare to stand alone. If you want to be unstoppable, become unbothered. Unbothered. You continue your mission regardless of who claps or who laughs. Now, I want to introduce you to a concept called anti-fragility, the ability to gain strength from adversity. A fragile mind breaks under stress. A robust mind resists stress. But an anti-fragile mind grows stronger because of stress. Every rejection adds resilience. Every failure upgrades strategy. Every heartbreak builds emotional muscles. You become a person who doesn't just survive storms, you benefit from them. That is the ultimate emotional evolution. But none of this matters if you tolerate a weak environment. The people around you influence your emotional standards. If you surround yourself with complainers, you adopt excuses. If you surround yourself with emotional reactors, you normalize chaos. If you surround yourself with victims, you forget that you are capable. Your environment can either sharpen you or soften you into nothingness. Audit your circle. Upgrade your influences. Keep only those who demand greatness from you. Now let's talk about something uncomfortable. Accountability. Emotional control requires taking full responsibility for how you act, regardless of how you feel. Blaming emotions for bad behavior is cowardice. I yelled because I was angry. No. You yelled because you chose reaction over self-control. I didn't pursue my goals because I was anxious. No. Anxiety didn't stop you. Your lack of courage did. Calling emotion the problem protects weakness. Holding yourself accountable builds power. Then there's the concept of emotional endurance, the ability to stay committed long after excitement fades. Anybody can start. This world is full of enthusiastic starters, but emotional strength is measured at mile 80, not mile 5. When the journey gets boring, painful, lonely, the emotionally disciplined keep moving. They don't need hype. They don't need applause. They don't need to feel like it. Because the mission matters. Let me give you this truth: growth is a choice. And so is emotional collapse. You choose whether to break or to build. You choose whether a bad day becomes a bad week or just another day. You choose whether criticism destroys confidence or motivates excellence. Your emotions do not get to choose your direction. That authority must belong to your purpose, your principles, your vision for your future. Let's talk about the future version of you, the one you dream about. That person exists on the other side of emotional mastery. That person wakes up disciplined. That person doesn't run from discomfort. That person doesn't panic when plans fall apart. That person doesn't react impulsively. They respond intelligently. That person is not controlled by cravings or insecurity. That person leads a life defined by mission, not mood. And here's the most powerful truth. That version of you is not far away. They are one decision away. The decision to stop letting feelings run your life. Say this to yourself: I am responsible for my emotions, and my emotions are responsible to my goals. You must become the commander of your inner landscape, because if you don't command your emotions will command your fate. We are nearing the final stretch of this transformation, the part where I show you how to build a permanent emotional standard, how to wake up every day with dominance over your inner world, how to ensure that nothing, not stress, not fear, not other people, can shake you from your mission. And the faster you move, the more the world tries to slow you down with emotional traps. People will question your decisions. They'll doubt you. They'll tell you to slow down. Be realistic. Don't be so intense. And worst of all, it's okay to settle. But you must understand this truth with every cell in your body. Settling is an emotional decision, never a logical one. Nobody logically decides to be average. Nobody logically chooses a mediocre life. But emotionally, people convince themselves it's safer to shrink safer, to hide safer, not to risk failure. And this is where most lives die, not in a box 6 feet underground, but in the silent surrender of ambition long before the body ever stops breathing. There is a reason emotional mastery is the foundation of high performance. The human brain has two primary drivers when responding to decisions: the limbic system, which reacts, and the prefrontal cortex, which leads. But most people never let the leader lead. They let the scared inner animal run the show. They live their whole lives bouncing from impulse to impulse, fear to fear, distraction to distraction. They feel a small discomfort and they run. They feel criticized and they shut down. They face uncertainty and they retreat back to what's familiar. But nothing extraordinary grows in what's familiar. Think of the greatest transformations in human history. They were never emotional comfort projects. They were born out of emotional chaos, but executed with emotional discipline. There is nothing wrong with having feelings. What's wrong is letting those feelings drive the steering wheel of your destiny. Even the ancient warriors knew this. The samurai would say, "Control your mind, or it will control you." They understood something critical. The battlefield begins inside. The most important war you will ever fight is against the emotions that try to stop you from becoming who you are meant to be. Let me ask you a hard question. How many times have you ruined your own momentum? Not because someone stopped you, but because you stopped yourself. You were excited Monday morning. You had a vision. You made plans. And by Wednesday, you convinced yourself it was too difficult. Your emotions negotiated you out of your greatness. You invented a story. I'm tired, I'm busy, maybe later. And you abandoned your mission. That's emotional weakness. And weakness compounds. Every time you let emotions decide for you, you build a habit of surrender. Neuroscience has shown that emotional impulses last only 60, 90 seconds physiologically. 90 seconds. But most people feed those emotions with thoughts, with fears, with fantasies of the worst case scenario. They don't just feel anxiety, they feed it. They don't just feel doubt, they nurture it. They allow the fear to multiply until it becomes a wall. But hear me clearly, the wall isn't real. It's a prison created by imagination, reinforced by emotional surrender. You weren't stopped by life, you were stopped by the story you told yourself about life. Let me give you a real example. I worked with a young man who had big ambitions, but every time he took a step forward, he'd panic. He'd disappear from opportunities. He'd skip meetings. He'd ghost important conversations. Why? Because his brain screamed, "What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I'm not good enough?" So he avoided everything that mattered. One day I told him, "You're not avoiding failure. You're avoiding the possibility of success because success would force you to grow." That's when he realized his emotional fear wasn't protecting him. It was protecting his comfort zone. And that is the most dangerous protection in the world. Let's talk about relationships. Entire lives are destroyed because of emotional reactivity. Marriages collapse not because two people don't love each other, but because they don't control their anger. Friendships end not because of betrayal, but because of wounded pride. People sabotage their most important connections because their emotions outrank their wisdom. A single moment of rage can erase years of respect. A single burst of jealousy can poison trust forever. You can spend a lifetime building a reputation, and one emotional outburst can burn it to the ground. And career, my God, careers die by emotion every day. The person with talent, intelligence, experience, gone in a single moment of emotional stupidity. They scream at a colleague in a meeting. They panic during a crisis. They take criticism personally and quit, not because of lack of ability, but lack of emotional maturity. Understand this, the world will throw pressure at you not to destroy you, but to reveal you. Pressure shows the truth. Do you break or do you stay steady? We must redefine what strength really is. Strength doesn't mean you never feel fear. Strength means fear never gets the final vote. Strength doesn't mean you never feel pain. Strength means pain never becomes an excuse. Strength doesn't mean you never feel anger. Strength means anger never becomes your decision-making system. True discipline is emotional, not physical. Anyone can follow a routine when they feel good. But the real test is what you do when you feel terrible. When everything in your body screams no more. When your mind wants to collapse into self-pity. That's where champions are built. In the invisible moments where emotion tries to kill your purpose. And let's be honest, the world today is designed to make you emotionally weak. Constant distraction, instant gratification, endless validation hunting, notifications attacking your attention like rapid-fire bullets. Every moment of silence is filled with stimulation, so you never have to confront the reality of your thoughts. People spend hours scrolling through lies, comparing themselves to illusions, drowning in insecurity generated by pixels, and then they wonder why their emotions control them. They don't give their mind a second to breathe. They don't practice stillness. They don't train discomfort. They are emotionally obese, full of feelings, starving for resilience. You want power. Learn discomfort. You want restraint. You want success. Learn emotional endurance. The real giants in history weren't the loudest. They were the most emotionally controlled. Think about a surgeon operating under extreme pressure. One wrong move, someone dies. But they stay calm. Why? Because their emotional control is trained like a muscle. Think of a pilot landing a burning plane. If panic takes over, hundreds perish. Their heartbeat rises, but their mind stays disciplined. Think of leaders during crisis, the ones who bring order to chaos. They're the ones who change history, not the ones who cry about how unfair everything is. Your emotions are signals, not commands. They are information, not instructions. They are a compass, not a captain. Feel them, analyze them, learn from them, but do not let them be the one driving your destiny. The moment you let emotion become your leader, you lose everything you could have been. People often ask, how do I control my emotions? And the first answer is this: stop trying to eliminate them. Control doesn't mean suppression. It means mastery. You must learn to separate the stimulus from the response. That tiny space is where freedom lives. And most people have never opened that space. They feel and immediately react. They panic and immediately quit. They get criticized and immediately defend. They get rejected and immediately withdraw. They get tempted and immediately indulge. There is no gap. There is no pause. There is no thinking. Just reaction, reaction, reaction. That is not a human life. That is an emotional puppet show. Let me show you something powerful from neuroscience. When stress hits, cortisol floods the brain. Your logical thinking temporarily shuts down. But if you breathe, if you pause just 5 seconds, your brain can shift back to rational control. 5 seconds can save your career. 5 seconds can save your relationship. 5 seconds can save your future. But most people give their emotions 2 hours, 2 days, 2 years, 2 decades of control. They turn temporary feelings into permanent regrets. And regret is a cruel enemy. Regret doesn't come the moment you fail. Regret visits late after your emotions have cost you opportunities you can never get back. After the person you pushed away is gone. After the dream you abandoned becomes impossible to restart. After the window closes forever. That moment, that quiet moment where you sit alone and realize you were the one who ruined it, that is emotional defeat. And I don't want that for you. The real challenge of emotional control isn't when life is easy. It's when everything goes to hell. Anyone can smile when the sun is shining. Anyone can be disciplined when things are going their way. The true test of your emotional discipline is who you are under fire. The heartbreak, the rejection, the loss, the humiliation, the failure. That's where emotional warriors are separated from emotional weaklings. You discover your identity when life hits you hardest. But here's the beautiful part: emotional control is trainable. It's not a trait you're born with. It's a skill you build. Every time you pause instead of react, you grow. Every time you stay on course despite fear, you grow. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you grow. And one day, without noticing, you become a different creature entirely. The person who used to break easily now stands unshaken. The person who used to panic now leads calmly. The person who used to run away now runs toward the battle. You become dangerous in the best possible way. The world can no longer manipulate you. Critics can no longer offend you. Challenges can no longer break you. Because you are in control of the one thing that shapes every piece of your life, your emotional state. You want to transform your life. Then transform your relationship with your emotions. Use fear as fuel. Use pain as data. Use anger as a signal. Use doubt as a challenge. But never let them become your master. The highest form of power is to feel everything and still remain unstoppable. And now we are about to go into the deepest transformation part of this entire message, where we break down the exact internal shift that creates emotional control at the identity level.